وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُّدَّكِرٍ.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Dear viewers, you are welcome to our program once again, Quran Made Easy, reaching you from MTA Africa. On this program, we'll learn the practical steps in the recitation of the Holy Quran. In our last episode, we started our discussion on the rules guiding the recitation of Nun Sākinah and Tanween. For those of us who are just joining us, Nun Sākinah means a nun carrying sukun, and Tanween is the fathatan, that is a double fatha, kasratan, a double kasra, and dhammatan, a double dhamma. So this is what we are looking at, and I mentioned that there are some rules that guide the recitation of these two, that is the Nun Sākinah and also the Tanween. One of those rules is al-idhār, which means manifestation. So we discussed this in our last episode, and I mentioned that there are 6 letters that anytime you find any one of them immediately after the Nun Sākinah or the Tanween, you are expected to apply the rule of idhār. And I mentioned also that the rule of idhār means manifestation. You are to manifest the Nun Sākinah or the Tanween. And how do you manifest? By just pronouncing the Nun Sākinah the way it is written. I gave some examples in Surah Al-Fatiha. Allah says, صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ. Just pronounce an'amta. That is al-idhār. An'amta. So don't take your time on that nun. Don't stay long on the nun. Don't say an'amta. When you do that, then you are not doing al-idhār. So pronounce the nun and move instantly to the ayn. Another example, minhum. Minhum. Because ha is also one of the letters of al-idhār. So pronounce the nun and move on to the ha. Minhum. Don't say minhum. There are other examples in the Quran, like the last verse of Surah Al-Ikhlas, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. So that is Hamza, which is one of the letters of Al-Idhār. Kufuwan ahad. Don't say walam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. It is wrong. Walam yakun lahu kufuwan a. Kufuwan a. Kufuwan a. Kufuwan ahad. So pronounce the kufuwan ahad instantly. Don't say kufuwan ahad. No. So that is that. So today we shall be going to the second rule, which is al-idgham. Literally, the word idgham means putting one thing into another. When you impute something into another thing, that is al-idgham, literally. Technically, what does it mean here? It means you putting a letter into another letter in such a way that the properties of the first letter that you are inserting into another letter may be totally lost or partially lost. I'm going to give examples here. I said it means you are trying to put a letter into another letter. You are inserting a letter into another letter. So when you now do this insertion, there are 2 possibilities. The first is that the properties of that letter that you are inserting into another letter will be totally lost, completely lost. You will not feel it again at all. That's the first possibility. The second possibility is that some of the properties will still be retained while some will be lost. Now, in this case of Nun Sākinah and Tanween, what letter are you putting into another letter? You are putting the Nun Sākinah into the next letter that comes after it. When I say Nun Sākinah, I'm sure we are all aware that it has covered Tanween also, because in every Tanween there is Nun Sākinah, as explained in our last episode. So you are putting the Nun Sākinah into the next letter that comes after it in such a way that the properties of that Nun will be partially or completely lost. So that is al-idgham. What are the letters of idgham? What are those letters that we observe idgham on? There are 6 of them, just like al-idhar. We also have 6 for al-idgham. The first letter of idgham is ya. Then we have ra. We have mim. We have lam. We have waw. And we have nun. So these 6 letters are used to form a word called yarmaloon. Just for us to remember. Yarmaloon. So when you memorize yarmaloon, at least you can break it down. Yar, that means ya and ra. Malu, that is mim and lam. Then that's madu. Maloon, that will be waw, then nun. So just for us to remember. So yarmaloon, ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, and nun. So these are the letters of al-idgham. Anytime you are reciting the Quran and you come across nun sākinah or tanween, as the case may be, immediately followed by any of these 6 letters, just know that you are to apply al-idgham. That is, you are to insert the nun sākinah into the letter that comes after it. Now, I said that in some cases, some of the properties will still be retained in your recitation, in your pronunciation. And in some other cases, the properties will be completely lost into the next one. You will not even feel the presence of the nun sākinah at all. And that is why we have 2 types of idgham under this topic. We have 2 types of idgham under this topic. We have the complete and incomplete idgham. The complete idgham, that is idgham kamil. We call it idgham kamil. And the incomplete, we call it idgham naqis. Naqis means incomplete. Then kamil means complete. When we say we are observing idgham kamil, that is a complete idgham, it means that the properties of the nun sākinah are completely immersed in the next letter that comes after it. You will not feel any of the properties at all again. The way you pronounce it will be that, in fact, anybody listening to you may assume that there is no even nun sākinah in that portion you are reciting. The properties will be completely lost. That's idgham kamil. But in the case of idgham naqis, some of the properties will still be retained. Anybody listening will still be able to know, okay, it seems there is nun sākinah here. So that is the difference between the 2. Now let me start with idgham naqis, the incomplete idgham. Out of the 6 letters of idgham, this idgham naqis takes 4 of these 6. I said we have 6 letters of idgham. We have ya, we have ra, we have mim, we have lam, we have waw, and nun. Out of these 6, idgham naqis, that is the incomplete idgham, has 4. And the 4 are ya, nun, mim, and waw, used to form the word yanmu, yan, ya, and nun, mu, mim, and waw. So it means anytime you are reciting the Quran and you come across nun sākinah or tanween, followed by ya or nun or mim or waw, you are to observe idgham naqis, an incomplete idgham. That means when you pronounce the nun sākinah, you must pronounce it in such a way that some of its properties will still be left, will be added in your recitation. Now, let us give some examples. In Surah Az-Zilzal, Allah the Almighty says, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ. Now let us analyze these 2 words. Faman, that's a word. Then we have ya'mal. The last letter of the first word, faman, is the nun sākinah that we are discussing. Then immediately we have ya, faman, then we have ya'mal. How do you pronounce it? If you pronounce it as, if you read it as faman ya'mal, you have done izhar. You have manifested the ya, the nun sākinah, and that is wrong. Because ya is not one of the letters of al-izhar that requires you to manifest the nun sākinah. That is wrong. So you don't recite as faman ya'mal. No. You have to observe idgham. And which idgham are you to observe here? Idgham naqis. That is incomplete idgham. That is, pronounce it in such a way that some properties of the nun sākinah will still be left. Now, how do you pronounce it? You recite thus. فَمَن يَعْمَلْ فَمَن. You can observe the sound, that sound. We call it al-ghunna, known as nasalization. It is a sound that comes from the nostril. That sound is one of the components of letter nun. That is al-ghunna. And that is why idgham naqis is otherwise known as idgham bi ghunna. That is the idgham that has gunna. So it is that gunna, that is the component of nun sākinah that is left in that pronunciation. فَمَن يَعْمَلْ فَمَن. You can observe that sound. That is the property of nun there. فَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ. So that is idgham naqis, an incomplete idgham. Yes, we are inserting the nun sākinah into the ya. And that is why we are not saying faman ya'mal. Because if I recite as faman, you can hear that the nun sākinah is there. Very loud and clear. Faman ya'mal. But it is wrong. Because ya that comes after the nun sākinah is not a letter of al-idhar. So I'm not required to do al-idhar there. So rather I'm going to do idgham, which means me inserting the nun sākinah into the ya. So I now recite as faman ya. So that is an example of idgham naqis. That is idgham that is not complete, or idgham bi gunna, idgham that has gunna. And I've also said that the gunna is that sound, that's something like that n sound that comes from the nostril. Faman ya'mal. So that is the property of nun sākinah that is being retained in that recitation. So I said there are 4 letters for idgham naqis. One of them is ya, which I have given example of. Then we also have nun. For instance, in the Quran, min nar, now we have a word min, mim kasra mi, then nun sukun, which is the nun sākinah. Then we now have nun again after it, followed by alif mad and ra. How do you pronounce it? Min nar, min nar, min. That is idgham naqis too. You are inserting the nun that is carrying sukun into the next nun. Now, anytime you see idgham, whether it is idgham kamil or idgham naqis, there is one thing that is applicable to both of them, and that is shadda. The letter of idgham that comes after the nun sākinah must take shadda, whether it is written or it is not written. Because if you are reading some copies of the Quran, they may not put the shadda there, assuming that you already know that it should have shadda. So whether it is written or it is not, there should be shadda. When we have idgham, then we have shadda. So that letter of idgham must carry shadda. And that's why in that verse of the Quran, that Surah Al-Zilzal, faman ya, that's ya. When we check the Quran, the ya is carrying shadda. Faman ya'mal. And min nar. It is also, that second nun is also carrying shadda. So we also have mim and wow. For instance, in the Quran says mim marij, mimma. Min, we have mim kasra, we have nun sukun, then we now have mim after it. So we have nun sākinah, then we have mim, which is a letter of idgham naqis. So how do you pronounce it? You don't say min marij, no. You don't say min marij, no. It is mimma. So when you take your time a bit on the nun sākinah, when you are transiting from the nun sākinah to the next letter after it. So when you are taking your time, naturally, that gunna sound will come. So you don't recite in haste. For instance, if you want to recite faman ya'mal the other time, and you say faman ya'mal, there will be no gunna, because you are taking your time. You are not taking your time on it. But when you say faman, so you taking your time on that nun sākinah will naturally bring about that gunna, that sound that comes from your nostril, which is one of the properties of known as sākinah, that is retained in that recitation. And that is what makes it idgham naqis. Idgham naqis, an incomplete idgham. So this is how far we can go today. Do join us in our next episode. For your inquiries and questions, please send them to africa@mta.tv. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.